Hey guys, welcome back to Pop Culture with Pat. Today we are talking about WandaVision Episode 4. Again, this is going to be my spoiler review and breakdown, so if you guys haven't seen the episode, make sure to watch that and then come back here afterwards. Also, if you guys are new to the channel, please make sure to hit that subscribe button as well as the bell button next to it. I'm doing reviews for all of the WandaVision episodes, so make sure you do that so that way you get notified for all of my videos. And please give this video a thumbs up. I also want to hear, what did you guys think of the episode and what are your theories, moving forward in the series? Let me know down below in the comments. But without further ado, let's go ahead and talk WandaVision. So the episode itself starts off crazy. Monica, she wakes up in the hospital and we soon realize it's from the snap when everyone's coming back in Endgame. She's in this hospital, she starts going through the halls, and you start seeing all these people start coming back in the hospital. They're like, we're overwhelmed, all these people are showing up. And I was just like, I couldn't believe that they were starting off, this episode with the effects of Endgame. I was like, holy shit, I just wasn't expecting that. So that was really cool to see, because I know a lot of people were talking about what happened to all these, these other random people throughout the world that when they just got snapped back, were they just gonna randomly show up? If they were in a plane, were they gonna fall down out of the air? Crazy things like that. So it was cool to see that, pop back up again. I just wasn't expecting it to see it in WandaVision, but it makes sense because now we realize the events of this only take place, I think it's 3 weeks afterwards. So it makes sense. The crazy thing though is that when Monica, she's going in the hospital because she was there, with her mom. She was in surgery, and so she goes to the front desk and she's like, where's my mom? And she ends up running into a doctor, and the doctor's like, yeah, your mom, she died, from cancer. And Monica, she doesn't understand because she had a clean bill of health, the cancer was gone, but I guess it ended up coming back, and she died a couple years ago, which was really sad, to kind of start off the episode as well. So she lost her mom and she was gone. She wasn't even there, which really sucks. After, this, we see Monica, she ends up going to S.W.O.R.D., which, kind of cements what we all thought, S.W.O.R.D. was behind, or at least they were trying to get into, where Wanda is. We saw all the Easter eggs and stuff like that. And so, we basically get the confirmation there. Monica goes in, she's trying to use her credentials and they don't work, since it's been several years. And then Tyler Hayward, who I guess is a new character, not from the comics or anything like that. He is the current, acting director for S.W.O.R.D., and she recognizes him, and they have a little meeting. And from their conversation that they have, we find out that her mom, Maria Rambeau, she was the one who kind of really helped start up, S.W.O.R.D., which that was, cool to see. And we actually, on one of the walls, we see a frame with her picture, and you see in quotations, if you look really close, it says photon, which is what Monica, goes by, or what she will go by, when she gets her powers, most likely. And I'm wondering if we're going to see her get her powers here in WandaVision, or if it's going to be more in Captain Marvel 2. I guess we will see, as we get to the end of the show, and then, the movie as well. I thought it was interesting too that Tyler, he calls her Captain, which I thought, was just interesting and definitely an Easter egg to her actually being, Captain Marvel before Carol Danvers is. So that was a nice little Easter egg to Captain Marvel there. As they're wrapping up their meeting too, Tyler, he's like, hey, I'm sending you to go investigate this missing persons with Jimmy Woo in New Jersey. And I didn't think about it till it didn't hit me right away. But when they get there to New Jersey, and it's oh, New Jersey, home of the New Jersey Devil. It could just be a total coincidence, but I just think that's another, maybe Easter egg, kind of hint thing that, we are going to be seeing Mephisto at some point. I don't know. There's just too many devil references, so far up to this point for it to not be anything at all. So it could be a coincidence, but I think that's definitely another hint to, us seeing Mephisto at some point. So Monica, she ends up meeting up with Jimmy Woo outside of the Westview. We see the town, we see a couple cops there. It's funny when we see Jimmy Woo, he does the magic trick that Ant-Man, he told them Paul Rudd in the Ant-Man movies. So that, that was funny. I really like seeing his character, come back. That was cool. And then we go over to the cops and, they tell Monica, they're like, yeah, there is no Westview. Now it's interesting because like she sees like the sign and like everything there, and he says he's from Eastview. So my thought is that with the this whole like bubble and everything that Wanda's got like going on here with Westview, is she like brainwashing these people that if you're like close enough, like you're affected by it, and basically she's like think causing you to think that there is no Westview, or is there really not a Westview and she just like like completely like created this? So definitely be interesting to see how that plays out. So from there, Monica and Jimmy, they're talking, and we see Monica, go into her car, and she gets a little helicopter drone out of the car. It looks a little bit different, from the one that we saw like earlier on in WandaVision, but we find out that this is in fact the helicopter that we see, that shows up in the bush that Wanda finds. Because Monica, she gets it ready and flying, and it goes in and it just disappears. So it's like, and we learn later on in the episode that it is in fact the same drone. It just changed its shape and how it looks, to fit Wanda's world. And then sure enough, we saw this in the little teaser clip too. Monica, she ends up going up, she touches like the little bubble, and then sure enough, she gets sucked into the world. At this point, then we see, it's like 24 hours like later, and we see this, this like truck, this like van, like coming to the place where Sword has everything like set up outside of Westview. And we see like Darcy's inside of there. So that was, we knew that she was coming in just again from the trailers. It was just a matter of time. So we saw her, and she ends up, showing up, and she does like, some readings and stuff like inside, and finds out that there is like some matter, like radiation from like the Big Bang, which is really, really interesting. I'm sure that's going to play more into as we get, a couple more episodes in. And she basically discovers like in like this like radiation that there is, a signal like on top of it. And so she's the one that discovers, the sitcom. She ends up getting out like this, brings out like an old TV, and we find out, it was her, in fact, which that's what I thought at the end of episode 1, who was watching, WandaVision on the TV set when we saw, the episode end. So in this episode, there's a lot of answers, I think, for the people that, were kind of like, oh, I don't really know how I feel about, like the first like couple episodes. Episode 4, they're like, hey, you know what? All those questions that you had, we're going to give you all the answers, or at least most answers, right here. It's also interesting because, watching like the episodes, Darcy, she's the first one to notice that there's, some like glitches where a thing will just kind of like, it'll like cut and like just jump to the next thing. And she's like, someone is censoring the broadcast as to, as we already know, Wanda is like, rewinding time and stuff like that. So she picked up on that pretty quickly. And then we see, Jimmy Woo, we see Darcy and the rest of like Sword and stuff like that. They start identifying all the people that are in like Westview, at least a good amount of them. So they're all like, most of them, like they're all real people, except when you look at the board, we saw Agnes, her picture up there, but she didn't have one of those like little like IDs like everybody else did. So again, I just think that's playing to the fact that she is most likely going to be Agnes Harkness, the witch, and she has a much bigger role to play in this whole thing. So I'm definitely thinking that's what we're going to end up getting. But I mean, who knows? It could be something completely different. You never know with Marvel. We also see Tyler, the director of Sword, he ends up sending the guy in like the hazmat suit. He sends him down into the sewer because they're like, hey, you know what? Maybe we can go underground and, come up, into Westview that way. And obviously we know that isn't the case. But he sends him down, and I definitely got some Stranger Things vibes there for sure. Especially like the first season where they send that guy into the Upside Down, and he has like the little rope attached to him, and he ends up getting eaten. That's what I instantly thought of like first thing when we were watching that. And as he's crawling through, he goes through like the little, the shimmer of like Westview, and you see him instantly change into the beekeeper outfit, and then like the rope, that breaks off and turns into like a jump rope. And he comes up through there, and we see his side of things, and we see like Wanda and Vision over there. And the way it was interesting because the way she said no was a little bit different, but it's funny because that's the last that we see of the beekeeper, at least for now. So it's like, did this guy just like disappear? Did he get like sent back out into like the real, the real world? Like what happened with him? Because we don't see in this episode. So I thought that was kind of funny. Finally, we get to the point in the episode, also, in the previous episode where of the actual like sitcom, I should say, where Monica, she brings up Ultron to Wanda, and then Wanda, starts like kind of freaking out on her. And we see like Jimmy Woo and Darcy watching, and they're probably just like, oh shit, like is this like supposed to be like happening? And then the broadcast, it like glitches there because Wanda obviously doesn't want to see them, doesn't want them to see what's happening. And so all of a sudden we like in the background you see it's like, oh, like like warning, because Monica, at the same time this is going on, Monica, she got like blasted through and she ends up landing out in like the real world with like, her 70s clothes. And so she lands out there, and so they go to go check on that. But as the audience, then it zooms in, the aspect ratio changes, which every time they do that, it's so freaking cool that it's just like super eerie for some reason. And we get to see that scene that we kind of missed in the last episode. We get to see that play out. And Wanda, she just like looks at her and she's like, who are you? And she's like, you're trespassing. And then we see her, use her powers and basically throw her out, not only through the house, but she goes like flying through like a bunch of buildings and stuff like that, which makes me think of like now after the episode is done, if that was a normal person, they probably would be dead like at that point, like going through that many buildings and stuff like that. So I kind of wonder if maybe Monica has her powers to some degree already. That's definitely like a theory that I have like right now. But so she lands outside and Sword's gathering around her and they go to, check on her, and she's just like, Wanda's doing it. Wanda's doing all of this, which, kind of confirms what we as the audience were thinking. But we still got a couple more episodes. I don't necessarily think it's just Wanda. Like, I definitely think there's some other players that we just haven't seen everything yet. So keep an eye on that. But then this part was, I mean, a lot of people weren't expecting, but like me, myself. So, we get to see where Vision, he comes in from outside and he's like, oh, where did Geraldine go? And he's talking to Wanda, and Wanda's like, oh, she had to rush home. But when she turns around this time and she looks at Vision, we see a dead Vision. Like, he's like gray, doesn't have the Mind Stone in him, anything like that. And a lot of people, it scared the shit out of. It definitely surprised me because, I mean, I guess they haven't officially like confirmed it yet, because it could just be her just projecting like that image of like Vision, like seeing him like dead, because she's kind of like lost her like control on like reality because of what just happened. But what I had heard, it's like, or the theories that I had heard, is that it could be Wanda after the events of Endgame. She could have picked up Vision's corpse and now she's reanimating it, which would be really, really creepy if that's actually the way that they're going. And I would honestly be really surprised. I didn't think Disney, Marvel would actually go there, but it looks like that might be the case. At that point though, like, he's like, oh, it's like, is anything wrong? And she's like, no. And Vision, he looks kind of concerned, and he goes over to her and he's like, oh, like, we can live like anywhere we want. And Wanda's like, no, we can't. Like, this is our home. And she's like, don't worry, I have everything under control. And just the way that she says that, it's like, ooh, that, that's super, super creepy. And you can just see Wanda, I think the way that they're going, she's going to be like the antagonist, the villain for Spider-Man, or at least, part of like Spider-Man 3, but also Doctor Strange 2, the Multiverse of Madness. And there's been a lot to kind of build up to that point. And I think that's the way they're going. But you can see Vision, he's definitely uncomfortable because he looks at her, and then she's like, oh, what do you want to watch tonight? And they pick up like the two kids, go to sit down, and like Vision goes from smiling to kind of like I don't know, like I don't know if I trust you. And oh man, what a way to end the episode. And then, they're watching TV from there. This episode I thought was amazing. I mean, I've loved the first 3 episodes, but this was one for all the people that, like I said, that kind of had problems with the first 3 sitcom, based like episodes. This time we got to see the point of view from Sword's, point of view of what was kind of going on the outside. We got a lot of answers as to, what, is this what they were doing? Confirming some of the theories that we had, but yet there's still several other questions like out there. So I want to hear what you guys thought of the episode. Definitely let me know down below in the comments. What are your theories kind of going forward in for the, the next couple episodes of the show? Definitely let me know. And again, if you guys are new to the channel, please make sure to hit that subscribe button as well as the bell button next to it. That way you get notifications for all my new videos. And as always, guys, please make sure to check back for more Pop Culture with Pat.